The day I received the final divorce decree, I knew that the old door of a mistaken marriage had slammed shut behind my back. 3 years as the wife of Matt Miller, 3 years in which I gave my heart, my money, and my trust to the Miller family. Now, looking back, I saw myself as an innocent lamb, surrounded by a pack of hungry wolves. I am Emily, an orphan since I was a child, fortunately raised with the love of my maternal grandparents. Thanks to a little talent for the flower business inherited from family tradition, I had managed to build a small and charming flower shop and accumulate considerable savings. Naively, I thought that the money I earned should be shared with my husband's family to build a future together. Who would have said that this generosity would turn me into easy prey? With the divorce decree in my hand, I felt a strange relief, as if a weight of 2,000 pounds had been lifted off my chest. Matt, my ex-husband, was in front of me, his face pale. He had tried to hold on to me with falsehoods until the very last minute, but I was fed up with his hypocrisy. He did not love me. He loved my bank account and my generosity, which bordered on stupidity. Emily, do you really have to be so cruel? After all, we were husband and wife, Matt said with a pitiful tone. I only sketched a bitter smile, a smile I had kept hidden for 3 long years. Matt, this cruelty was taught to me by your own family. You, your mother, and your sister have used my money at your whim for 3 years, and now you want to maintain a marriage of appearances to keep squeezing me dry. Besides, you already have another woman. What is the need to put on this theater in front of your ex-wife? Matt was about to reply, but my phone vibrated. It was a message from Jessica, my ex-sister-in-law. My hands trembled slightly as I opened it. It was not an apology, nor a question about how I was, but a photo of her smiling from ear to ear next to another woman. Underneath, a provocative text. Congratulations to Matt for getting rid of the fake wife. I am treating everyone to an all-expenses-paid weekend at the luxury Aspen Springs Resort to welcome my new sister-in-law, Tiffany. Thank you, Emily, for financing the courtship that allowed my brother to find true love. Enjoy your loneliness. Signed, Jessica, the sister of your ex-husband. I stared at the photo. The girl named Tiffany was the mistress who had inserted herself into my marriage. The photo was taken at an extremely expensive resort where I had proposed inviting the whole family, but my mother-in-law had always refused, claiming the trip was too costly, and now Jessica was bragging about having booked everything, clearly to provoke me until the very end. The rage inside me exploded like a fire in a dry field. That photo and that message were not just a provocation, but a public declaration of the contempt and bottomless greed of the Miller family. Did they consider my divorce a victory, an opportunity to keep enjoying life at my expense? I looked up at Matt with a gaze cold as ice. Matt, do you know what your sister is doing? I asked with a monotone voice. Matt seemed bewildered, but he took out his phone. Not only did he not deny it, but with total naturalness, he liked Jessica's photo and commented, "Thank you, dear sister. I will invite the whole family to the wedding." That gesture was like a slap in the face, an irrefutable confirmation. They had been preparing for this day for a long time, and now they were gloating over their loot. My feelings were no longer of pain, but had transformed into an iron determination. For 3 years, I had been too soft. Now it was the time to take everything back, not out of spite, but for justice and for self-respect. I took a deep breath and pulled out my phone. Matt looked at me with suspicion. He expected me to cry, beg, or cause a scene, but I just smiled, a smile full of mystery. Matt, you and your family have always thought I am stupid and easy to manipulate, but today I am going to show you that this Emily not only knows how to earn money, but also how to demand justice. I slid my finger across the phone screen and accessed my banking application. My money. The money I let you all spend with handfuls for 3 years. Consider it the interest on the hard lesson I have learned from your family. Now, the lesson has finished. Matt stared at me, not yet understanding what I was doing, but his face was beginning to show signs of anxiety. "What are you doing, Emily? Don't do something foolish," he shouted. I ignored his words. I had to act with speed and decision. In that moment, the rage had become my greatest motivation. I wanted the Miller family, who in that instant were rejoicing in Aspen, to taste the bitter flavor of misfortune, for them to understand what it felt like to lose everything when you are at the peak of enjoyment. I went into the card management section and selected all the additional cards I had issued for my husband's family. In total, 11 cards, including those for his grandparents, uncles, his mother Linda, Jessica, and of course Matt. I had given them to each one thinking it was a way to demonstrate my affection and integrate myself. Now I had to put an end to that useless generosity. One by one, I selected the 11 cards, blocked them, and canceled them permanently. I did everything calmly without the slightest hesitation. Each tap on the screen was a forceful blow to the life of luxury that the Miller family enjoyed with the sweat of my brow. I saved all the statements and transfer receipts as proof. I would not let them deny anything. Matt, seeing my determination, started to feel real panic. He understood that a large part of his comfortable life and that of his family depended on my inexhaustible source of money. "What are you doing? Are you aware of what you are doing? How dare you cancel my card and those of my mother and Jessica?" Matt stepped closer. His pleading tone transformed into anger and panic. I kept looking at the screen, waiting for the final notification from the bank. When the message of successful cancellation appeared, I raised my head and faced him. "I have canceled the 11 additional cards I issued for your family. Do not worry. My main card is still active. But you all no longer have the right to use even one more cent of my money. This money is mine, and I decide over it." Matt lunged, trying to snatch the phone from me. "I will call the bank to reactivate them right now." I stepped back, dodging his attempt. I knew perfectly well that, once done, it could not be reversed immediately. The cancellation was permanent. "Don't bother. It is already done. You and your family have spent my money for 3 years. Now you will have to figure it out on your own." Matt stood paralyzed, his face contorted by anger and fear. The collapse of that endless financial source was a devastating blow for him. I looked at my watch. At that time, Jessica and my mother-in-law Linda were probably enjoying the thermal waters, getting ready for a luxury dinner. I knew my phone would not take long to ring, and that would be the true beginning of my revenge. With the phone that had fulfilled its mission in hand, I turned around and walked away, leaving Matt planted there like a statue. In that instant, I felt I had been born again. I was no longer the naive and easy-to-trick Emily. I was the Emily of determination, of justice, and of revenge. I told myself that this had only just begun. I left the lawyer's office where I had just signed the divorce and went directly to my usual coffee shop. I wanted to reward myself with a sweet mocha, something I had forbidden myself during my marriage because my mother-in-law said it was a vulgar and unhealthy drink. All the old customs, all the absurd rules of the Miller family, I was going to erase them from my life. Matt, after I left, called me nonstop, but I ignored all his calls. The ringing of his phone sounded incessantly, but I just sipped my hot coffee, enjoying its sweetness. I knew Matt would have never imagined I would dare to act with such forcefulness. In his eyes and those of his family, I was a weak woman who only knew how to serve and endure. They forgot that a businesswoman like me, when she makes a decision, sees it through to the end. Sitting in the coffee shop, I opened the banking app again to review the list of canceled cards. 11 names, 11 faces appeared in my mind. Linda, my mother-in-law, used the card to withdraw cash and play in underground bingo halls and to buy luxuries without thinking twice. Jessica, my sister-in-law, used it to buy designer bags and shoes, travel everywhere, and brag constantly. Matt, my ex-husband, used it to buy expensive gifts for his mistress Tiffany, to treat his friends, and to pretend to be a successful man. The grandparents and uncles, although they did not spend as much as those three, also considered my card as a source of extra income for unnecessary whims. I was fed up with being the money printer for that family. As expected, only 15 minutes later, I received a call from an unknown number. It was Matt. I rejected the call. He called again. I rejected it again. On the fifth call, I turned off the phone. Half an hour later, I turned it on to check the situation. I wanted them to taste the flavor of powerlessness before officially facing the chaos they had created. I opened a new bank account and transferred all my savings, leaving only a small amount in the old account to be able to keep monitoring it. Although the additional cards were canceled, I wanted to be aware of any movement or message related to them in case they tried some stupidity. Approximately an hour later, when I had almost finished my coffee, the phone vibrated. This time it was not Matt, but a landline number from Aspen. I furrowed my brow and answered. "Hello, Emily speaking." A woman's voice, professional but tense, sounded on the other side. "Good afternoon. Am I speaking with Mrs. Emily? I am the receptionist at the Aspen Springs Resort." I responded calmly. "Yes, it is me. What is happening?" "Ma'am, we are calling to inform you about the payment for the reservation of Miss Jessica Miller's group. The bill for their stay of 3 days and 2 nights, which includes spa services, treatments, meals, and the VIP suite, amounts to a total of $15,000. However, Ms. Jessica's card has been declined 3 times. We have tried to run other cards she provided, but they all indicate that the service has been canceled or deny the payment. Ms. Jessica has told us that the cards are hers and that you are the one sponsoring this trip." I smiled to myself. The plan had worked. "Oh, I understand," I replied with naturalness, as if it were the most normal thing. "Ms. Jessica is right. I provided those cards to her and her family in the past, but my ex-husband, Matt Miller, and I have divorced, and I have canceled all additional card services from my bank. In other words, those cards no longer have any value." The receptionist's voice sounded confused. "So, you mean you are not going to pay for these services?" "Miss Receptionist, Matt Miller, Jessica Miller, Linda Miller, and I no longer have any legal or financial relationship. Besides, this trip is to entertain my ex-husband's mistress, something that has nothing to do with me. Please inform Ms. Jessica and Mrs. Linda that they must pay their own bill. If they cannot do it, it is their problem. I have no responsibility." I heard a loud murmur on the other side of the line. It seemed my ex-mother-in-law and ex-sister-in-law were nearby. The receptionist hesitated. "Understood. However, Ms. Jessica and Mrs. Linda are very upset. They say they are not going to pay and demand that you make the payment immediately, or else they will cause a scene." I let out a dry laugh. Let them cause whatever scene they want. It is the usual attitude of the Miller family, but you should also remember that their scandal will affect the reputation and security of your resort. As the former holder of the cards, I allow myself to suggest that you cancel all their services and ask them to leave the premises. If they do not pay, proceed according to the rules of your establishment. I only confirm that I am not going to pay nor vouch for that group of guests." I hung up, feeling deep satisfaction. Immediately after, my phone started ringing like crazy. This time it was my ex-mother-in-law Linda's number. I sketched a half smile and waited for the second call to answer slowly. I wanted her to savor the anxiety and confusion. As soon as I picked up, I heard Linda's voice, shrill, full of anger and resentment. "Emily, what the hell are you doing? Tell the bank to reactivate my card right now. My card, Jessica's, the whole family's cards are blocked. What game are you playing?" I kept my voice calm, as if I were talking about the weather. "Look, Linda, I have already divorced Matt. You and I are nothing to each other anymore. The bank cards are my property, and I have the right to decide when to stop using them. I think you and Jessica should pay your own bill, don't you think? Why are you calling me?" "Pay ourselves? Do you know how much it is? Almost $15,000. How are Jessica and I going to have that much cash right now? Reactivate the cards. Do you know where we are? In the mountains. It is freezing. It is 40 degrees out here. I feigned surprise on purpose. Wow, only 40 degrees. Well, you will have to bundle up well, Linda. I have heard that resort is very expensive. Surely they do not lack blankets and warm comforters, right? Linda's voice became even sharper. What blankets or what comforters? Those rude receptionists have kicked us out of the room. They have thrown all our luggage outside into the cold. I am here, shivering at the door. You are a wicked woman. Do you want us to freeze to death? I heard Linda's screeching voice through the phone, and in the background, Jessica's sobs. I imagined the scene, the two of them, with all their designer clothes, stranded in the middle of the cold, having to hug their suitcases, dying of shame. A feeling of glee invaded me. Linda, I do not want you to freeze to death. I just want you and Jessica to taste a little of what it is like to lose everything. You say I am wicked? You should ask yourself who has been the true wicked one. Who has been sucking my blood for the last 3 years? I decided not to beat around the bush. I had to let her know that I knew everything. I remind you, Linda, that the amount of money you all have spent with my additional cards in these 3 years amounts to almost $70,000. You say I want you to freeze to death? Do you remember the bag worth more than $8,000 that Jessica just bought? Do you remember the hundreds of dollars in cash you withdrew to go play bingo? And Matt, your son, my ex-husband, spent more than $20,000 on super expensive gifts for his mistress, Tiffany. Linda, think about it well. Who has wanted to freeze my life with their greed and their lies? Linda fell silent. She did not expect me to know every detail. Jessica also stopped crying. The silence on the other side of the line prolonged until Linda stammered. What are you saying? Have you been spying on us? I do not need to spy. The bank statements are the clearest proof. Linda, did you really believe that this Emily was so stupid as to not notice anything? I kept silent because I still respected the marriage, but it is no longer necessary. You and Jessica should call Matt to resolve the payment. Surely he will feel quite powerless, because he doesn't have any additional card left to use either. Besides, he doesn't have much money left to buy gifts for his new mistress. He will still have to worry about finding money to buy a train ticket back to the city. I smiled slightly, and I added one last sentence. May you and Jessica have an unforgettable stay in the mountains with your 40 degrees of temperature. I hung up and turned off the phone again. That call had given me absolute satisfaction. I had officially declared war, and I had won the first battle. I would wait for them to return to the city to face them and claim everything that was mine. My phone did not stop ringing, but this time I just looked at the screen without answering. Since I canceled the cards and spoke with Linda, I knew that the chaos in the Miller family had only just begun. I wanted them to experience absolute powerlessness and confusion before facing them directly. I turned on the phone, but only to read the messages. An avalanche of insults, pleas, and threats from Matt, Jessica, and Linda flooded my screen. Jessica, Emily, you are a horrible person. Do you know how many people are watching us? You left us on the street in the freezing cold. Do you not fear karma? Matt, Emily, reactivate my mother's and Jessica's cards right now. We will talk later. Do not make things worse. Money can be recovered, but affection cannot. I read quickly, shaking my head. Affection? When had that family shown me affection? They only knew greed and exploitation. I decided to respond to only one message. Matt's. Matt, our affection ended the moment you started cheating on me with Tiffany. I am only reclaiming my money. You are right. Money can be recovered. You should tell your mother and your sister to get to work to pay the bill at Aspen. See you in the city. I did not respond to any more messages. I just observed. What I wanted was to see their humiliation, not hear apologies or senseless threats. Half an hour later, Matt called me through a messaging app. I decided to answer to know how the situation was. Matt's voice on the other side sounded hoarse, full of anxiety and panic. Did he no longer have that air of usual fake calm? Emily, listen to me. My mother and Jessica are being held in the security room of the resort. They won't let them leave if they don't pay. Think about the reputation of the Miller family. I took a sip of water and responded calmly. Mr. Miller, the reputation of the Miller family was thrown to the ground by your mother and your sister a long time ago. The proof is that photo Jessica uploaded to social media bragging about her luxury trip. They were using my money to have fun, and you confirmed it by liking the photo. Now they have to assume the consequences of their actions. Whether they hold them or kick them out is their problem, not mine. But my mother is very cold. She says it is 40 degrees outside and all her luggage is thrown out. Her warm clothes are in the suitcases. Matt's voice was almost a plea. Well, then you should buy a train ticket and plant yourself in Aspen right now. You are her son and her brother. You have a responsibility to them. If you have money to buy $10,000 gifts for your mistress, surely you also have it to buy a ticket and pay your mother and sister's bill. Or have you forgotten that you have your own bank account? My account? I don't have that much money. Do you know how much this trip costs? $15,000. I don't have that much cash. I feigned surprise. Wow, only $15,000. That amount is nothing compared to the $70,000 that your family has spent with my additional cards in 3 years. Matt, you should start getting used to paying your own expenses and assuming your responsibilities. That is real life. Matt fell silent for a moment. He knew he was against the ropes. He had become too used to living at my expense. Emily, do not push me. What you have done is illegal. Canceling the cards without warning and causing harm to others is not allowed. He started to threaten me. I let out a dry laugh. Matt, I am already divorced from you. I am the account holder. I have the right to cancel the cards. Besides, what I have done is not illegal at all. They used my cards to pay for an unjustified luxury trip, and the payment was declined. The fault is theirs. You can sue me, but I will present all the detailed statements to prove that you have squandered my assets during the marriage. Who do you think will look ridiculous before the judge and public opinion? Matt was completely disarmed. He knew I was telling the truth. All the evidence was against him. He'd gotten used to living under my protection, and now he was incapable of solving the problems his own family had caused. After hanging up, I received another message, this time from the resort receptionist. Ms. Emily, Mrs. Linda, and Ms. Jessica have caused a great commotion, bothering the rest of the guests. Management has ordered security personnel to escort them off the premises. They have collected their luggage and are being transported in a vehicle back to the city. However, they have not yet paid the bill. We will send a notification to the competent authorities to resolve this debt. Thank you for clarifying the information about the cards. I breathed a sigh of relief. The drama in Aspen had ended. I had achieved my first objective, the humiliation and powerlessness of the Miller family. They had endured the cold. They had been expelled. And most importantly, they had been made to look ridiculous in front of other wealthy guests. I finished my coffee, preparing for the direct confrontation in the city. I knew Linda and Jessica would return that same night or the next morning. They would not leave things like that. They would come to my house to scream, cry, and beg. And I, Emily, would be waiting for them with a stack of bills and a determination of steel. If they wanted a war, they would have it. But this time, I would dictate the rules of the game. I told myself that Aspen had only been the appetizer. The city would be the true battlefield. That night, I could not sleep, not out of worry, but out of the excitement of seeing my plan unfold perfectly. I had put the phone on silent, but I kept looking at the screen. As expected, the messages of insults and threats from Linda and Jessica did not stop arriving, but I only read them quickly. I wanted them to experience the most absolute exhaustion, panic, and shame. The next morning, while I was watering the pots of yellow chrysanthemums in my flower shop, the phone rang again. This time it was a video call from Linda's number. I sketched a smile and decided to answer. I wanted to see with my own eyes their pitiful state after a hellish night in Aspen. The image that appeared on the screen almost made me let out a loud laugh. Linda, the woman always impeccable, dressed in silks, now had messy hair, a haggard face, and was sitting in a dark corner. Next to her, Jessica, in a similar state, was hugging one of the designer bags she had bought with my card. "Emily, you finally answer? Tell me where you are right now." Linda's voice was hoarse, loaded with fatigue and anger. I held the phone and did a smooth turn to show her the bright and vibrant atmosphere of my flower shop. "Look, Linda, I am at my flower shop, Emily's Blooms, remember? Enjoying a fresh and fragrant morning in the city. Have you and Jessica returned yet?" I emphasized each word deliberately, with a tone so sweet it was irritating. Linda shouted through the phone, a sound that attracted the attention of some passers-by. "Don't pretend anymore. You know perfectly well where I am. I am at the airport. Jessica and I had to buy one-way plane tickets last night to return to the city. Do you know I had to borrow money from everyone to buy them? All my cards are blocked. You are a wicked woman. You wanted to freeze us to death. You wanted to see us thrown on the street." I left the phone on the table on speaker mode while I continued pruning the withered leaves of the chrysanthemums. "Linda, I already told you I am not that wicked. I am just reclaiming what is fair. I think the fact that you and Jessica had to buy plane tickets and pay for your stay is something any responsible adult would do, right? Why do you blame me? I earn the money and I decide where it goes." "Decide what? That money is marital property. You cannot do that," shouted Linda. I stopped pruning and looked at the phone screen. "Marital property. Linda, you are right. It is the fruit of my labor and I shared it with Matt's family. But let me ask you, what have you used those so-called marital assets for?" I began to reveal every detail, my voice cold and decided like a sentence. "I have reviewed all your expenses. The card I gave you was not for you to gamble thousands of dollars in underground bingo halls. The card was not for Jessica to buy an $8,000 bag to brag about wealth she does not have. And above all, my card was not for Matt, your son, to spend more than $20,000 on jewelry, clothes, and the rental of a luxury apartment for his mistress Tiffany." My voice became harder and harder, making Linda run out of words. Her face paled. Jessica, next to her, lowered her head. "Linda, you say I am wicked because by canceling the cards, you had to endure the cold at 40 degrees. But do you know that the money your family has sucked out of me in these 3 years amounts to almost $70,000? With that money, I could buy a small apartment in the suburbs or open 2 more branches of my flower shop. You have frozen my future and my trust with your bottomless greed." Linda tried to reply, but her words no longer had the same force. "You lie. I don't gamble that much, and Jessica only bought a bag. You are defaming me." "Defaming? Linda, the bank statements are irrefutable proof. I have kept everything, from the receipts of the gambling parlors to the invoice for Jessica's bag and the purchase of the diamond ring for Tiffany. I have it all ready. I am not calling you to argue, but so you know that I know everything." I looked directly at the camera with a sharp gaze. "Listen to me. You and Jessica come back home. I will wait for you and Matt to come to my house here in the city. I will show you with your own eyes this thick folder of bills. I only have one demand. Pay me back all my money." Jessica intervened with a hurt voice. "Emily, how can you treat me like this? I am your sister-in-law." "Sister-in-law? Jessica, have you ever considered me your sister-in-law? Would a true sister-in-law brag on social media about the infidelity and divorce of her sister-in-law? Have you ever respected me instead of viewing my card as your personal ATM? Let's not talk about family ties anymore. Between your family and me, there is nothing left. I gave them no chance to say anything else. "Linda, I will wait for you and Matt at home. You better come prepared with the money to talk to me. I give you a single opportunity to resolve this amicably." I hung up the call abruptly. I did not want to listen to any more excuses or meaningless threats. The purpose of the call had been fulfilled, to demonstrate to them that I was no fool and that I was prepared for a legal battle. I took a deep breath, feeling lighter than ever. I knew the biggest battle would take place in the city when they arrived loaded with anger and shame to face me. I had all the evidence ready to defeat their greed. I looked through the window of Emily's blooms. My new life, full of freedom and autonomy, had truly begun. I lived in a rented apartment in a nice neighborhood in the city. I rented it after getting married as a private refuge, but soon it became my hiding place from the intrusion and impositions of my husband's family. Now, this apartment was my main battlefield. Exactly at 3 p.m. that day, while I was organizing the divorce documents and bank statements, the doorbell rang repeatedly, accompanied by loud banging on the door. I did not need to look through the peephole to know who it was. Only the Miller family could show up at someone's house in such an aggressive and rude manner. Calmly, I put on decent house clothes and went to open. In front of me was the usual trio, Matt, Linda, and Jessica. Matt had a haggard face, probably from having to manage the whole disaster in Aspen. Linda and Jessica still reflected the anger and resentment of their failed trip. Although they had changed clothes, the exhaustion was evident on their faces. "Emily, so you dare to open." As soon as she saw me, Linda lunged at me, attempting to grab my arm, but I took a step back to dodge her. "Linda, Matt, this is my house. Of course I opened the door, but I am sorry. Matt and I are already divorced, so I do not invite you to enter. If you have something to say, please, let's talk here." I kept a safe distance, blocking the entrance. Linda did not give up and began her performance. "Oh my God, I have taken care of this daughter-in-law for 3 years, and now she turns her back on me, steals all our money, blocks our cards, and makes my whole family be humiliated in Aspen. Now she wants to throw us out on the street?" She began to cry loudly, letting herself fall to the floor in the hallway of the building. The hallway, a passageway for many young families who valued tranquility, became the center of attention. Linda's spectacle, sitting on the floor, crying at the top of her lungs, immediately attracted the neighbors' gazes. Jessica sat next to her, joining the crying pathetically. "Emily is very mean. She has destroyed my reputation. People look at me with contempt. You have to give me back my honor." Matt, standing next to her, red with shame, tried to lift her without success. "Mom, stop it. We are in a building. Don't cause a scene." I observed the scene with a frozen heart. I had already witnessed those tears and those little acts too many times in the last 3 years. They always used tears and harassment to break me, but not this time. I was prepared. I reached inside the house and pulled out a thick folder full of bank statements and detailed bills. I held it with both hands and stepped out into the hallway. All the curious gazes of the neighbors focused on me and the Miller family sitting on the floor. I planted myself in front of Linda and Jessica, who continued crying. "Excuse me, everyone, for the noise," I said, with a tone loud enough for the neighbors to hear me. "It is not my intention to disturb, but my ex-husband's family is claiming something that does not belong to them." I looked directly at Linda. "Linda, you and Jessica say I cut off the tap and that is why you are suffering, right? Do you think I am a greedy and cruel person?" Without waiting for an answer, I dropped the folder to the floor with a decisive gesture. Bam! The thick folder with hundreds of bills and statements scattered across the hallway. A sudden silence took over the place, only broken by the rustle of paper. "There you have it, Linda, Matt, Jessica, and everyone present." I pointed to the pile of papers. "Look, during 3 years of marriage, the Miller family has used 11 of my additional cards to finance their luxurious lifestyle." Linda and Jessica stopped crying, raising their heads to look at the papers scattered at their feet. The humiliation was evident on their faces. They did not expect me to act in such a public and forceful manner. I continued, without wavering. Inside here are all the proofs of how Miss Jessica bought a bag for $8,000 to go out with her friends. There are all the receipts for the cash withdrawals by Mrs. Linda at the bingo halls she usually frequents. And there are all the bills for the expensive gifts Mr. Matt Miller bought for his mistress, Tiffany. I crouched down and picked up a statement with the largest expense of the month marked in red. To be exact, just the spending through my additional cards in these 3 years amounts to $70,000. All that money is the fruit of my work at the flower shop. I have worked hard so they could have a comfortable life, and they have betrayed me and taken advantage of me. I looked at the neighbors whose faces showed compassion. So tell me, everyone, who is the parasite? Who is the cruel one? Did I do right or wrong by canceling their cards and forcing them to pay for their own life? Matt approached, trying to pick up the papers to hide the evidence. But it was already too late. I had said it loud and clear, and there were many witnesses. "Emily, stop it." "Are you humiliating my family?" Matt said, clenching his teeth. I let out a dry laugh. "Humiliating? The truth is the truth, Matt. You and your family have humiliated yourselves with your greed. I have only brought the truth to light." Linda got up, pointing at me. "You dare to shame me here? I will not forgive you." "Linda, you may not forgive me, but I will sue you and Matt for misappropriation and fraud if you do not return my money," I replied firmly. I had turned their little number into my public revenge. I had used the truth and the evidence to crush their falsehood in front of everyone. Now my neighbors knew everything. I was not the villain, but the victim of their greed. I went into the house, grabbed an envelope I already had prepared, and threw it at Matt. "Inside here is the summary of expenses and my debt claim. Matt, you and your family have to pay me back a total of $100,000. That figure includes the $70,000 of card expenses and the $30,000 of the wedding gift that Mrs. Linda appropriated. I give you 3 days to resolve it. If not, I will file a lawsuit in court. Now please leave. This hallway is not a stage for your plays." I slammed the door shut, leaving the Miller family standing among the pile of papers, their faces pale with shame and fear. After slamming the door, I could still hear the commotion, the arguments, and the neighbors' murmurs outside. I knew that was the moment the Miller family faced the raw reality. Their greed had been publicly exposed. I sat on the sofa, my hand still cold from contact with the folder of statements. $70,000 in expenses plus the theft, a huge sum, the fruit of my labor, which my ex-husband's family had squandered without mercy for 3 years. The money didn't hurt me. The wasted effort and trust hurt me. Half an hour later, everything returned to calm. I knew they had left, taking the humiliation and shame with them. They did not dare to make more of a scene because all the evidence was against them. That night, I could not sleep. I decided to review in detail each of the large expenses they had made. I opened the file and examined Linda's expenses, my ex-mother-in-law. She had always presented herself as a moral and thrifty woman, complaining constantly about prices. But in reality, she was a compulsive gambler. The documents clearly showed that Linda's card had been used to withdraw more than $15,000 in cash at ATMs near gambling halls during the 3 years. That was without counting the small transfers to friends I knew were loan sharks or owners of those places. She used my money to feed her gambling addiction. Then Jessica, the sister-in-law who always boasted of being a lady from a good family. The documents detailed her luxury purchases, Louis Vuitton and Gucci bags, high-end shoes and cosmetics. In total, her expenses exceeded $20,000. The bag she had shown off in Aspen, valued at $8,000, she had bought just 2 weeks before I signed the divorce. She treated my money as if it grew on trees. And finally, Matt, my ex-husband. The documents showed he had spent more than $20,000 on a diamond ring, an expensive watch, and the rental of a small luxury apartment for Tiffany, his mistress. He said they were representation expenses, client money, but it all came from the additional card I had provided him. He used his wife's money to maintain his mistress. I looked at the total sum, $70,000 in pure spending. I took a deep breath. The facts were clear and irrefutable. Not only were they greedy, they were sophisticated scammers. The next morning, Matt called me. His voice no longer held arrogance, but fatigue and fear. "Emily, calm down. I know my family made a mistake, but $100,000 is too much money. We cannot get it immediately. I think we should sit down to talk about how to resolve it." "How to resolve it, Matt?" I replied. "The only solution is for you to return the money. I gave you and your family 3 days. Today is the 2nd. Do not look for excuses to delay it. I have all the proofs. If we go to court, it will be much worse for your family's reputation." Matt fell silent. He was calculating. "I know I can return a part, but my mother has no money. Jessica neither. She has already spent it all. Could you not be a little understanding?" "Understanding?" I let out a bitter laugh. "Matt, in these 3 years, how many times have you, your mother, and your sister been understanding with me? You have emptied my pockets without blinking. I am not a charity organization. You have to assume responsibility for what your family has done. Tell your mother to sell some of her jewelry or the house Jessica lives in and pay me back, or you will have to get to work to pay the debt, little by little." I was determined not to yield. They had to feel the price of their greed. "Matt, those $70,000 are just the expenses. There is another amount your family must pay." Matt was confused. "What other amount?" "The $30,000 of the wedding gift that Linda appropriated to buy an apartment for Jessica. I want to recover that, too. In total, $100,000. Matt's silence prolonged until he exclaimed, "What? $30,000 from the wedding gift? What are you talking about? That money was to organize the wedding. My mother used it to buy the jewelry, the preparations." I knew he was trying to deny it, but I was prepared for that lie. "Matt, whether you remember or not, I don't care. What matters are the proofs. I am going to show you the clearest proof of this deception." That afternoon, I decided to meet Matt and Linda in a public coffee shop. I wanted the conversation to take place in a busy place so they could not resort to aggression or victimhood. I arrived early with another even thicker folder of documents. Not only did it contain proof of the $70,000 spent, but also that of the $30,000 for the wedding gift. Matt and Linda arrived, looking tense and tired. Matt tried to maintain composure, while Linda looked at me with resentment. Jessica did not dare to come, probably out of fear of being humiliated again. "Emily, explain to me about the wedding gift. It is already excessive that you claim $70,000, but now you add $30,000 more?" Matt said, trying to take the initiative. Linda intervened, defiant. "Exactly. I received that money to take care of everything for the wedding. I used it to buy the gold, the jewelry, and even the car you bought to go to work. It is absurd that you claim it." I smiled, a smile without warmth. "Linda, are you not ashamed to lie like that? I think you should be honest in front of your son. I already know that you and Matt have been deceiving me with money, and I do not want to prolong this any further." I opened the folder and took out 2 key documents, the receipt of the bank transfer of $30,000 and a sales contract for an apartment. I put the 2 papers on the table and slid them towards Matt. "Look, Matt, these $30,000 were the wedding gift my family gave me. Then I transferred them to your mother's account so she could take care of everything. You say she used it for jewelry and the car, right?" I pointed to the sales contract. "Is this the sales contract for an apartment on the north side in Jessica's name? The date of the signature is a week after I transferred the $30,000 to your mother, and the down payment coincides curiously with that same amount. There you have it, Linda." Both Matt and Linda leaned in to look at the documents. Their faces changed immediately, from defiance to horror. Linda stammered, "No, it is not like that. I just borrowed it. Then I returned it in cash." I crossed my arms and shook my head. "Borrowed? If it was a loan, why didn't you tell me or Matt? Besides, I have reviewed all the transactions in my account. There's no transfer back from your mother's account to mine. Linda, Not only have you deceived me, but you have taken advantage of my affection to buy an apartment for your daughter." Matt looked at his mother with fury. "Mom, what have you done? Did you really use the wedding gift money to buy the apartment for Jessica? You didn't tell me anything." Linda's lie had been discovered in front of her own son. She had appropriated the wedding gift, the money my family had given me to start my new life, and had used it to benefit her daughter. "Matt, don't tell your father. Mom just wanted Jessica to have a stable place to live," pleaded Linda. "Linda, what you want to do is your business, but I am not going to allow you to steal my assets in such a shameless way. I claim the $70,000 in expenses and the $30,000 from the wedding gift. In total, $100,000, not a cent less." Just at that moment, I saw a group of people enter the coffee shop. It was my mother, my uncle, my aunt, and my cousin. I had summoned them here. The appearance of my family took Matt and Linda completely by surprise. My mother, Barbara, a shrewd and firm woman, had always been my greatest support. She approached, put her hand on my shoulder, and looked directly at Linda and Matt. "Good afternoon, Linda. Hello, Matt. We've come as Emily's family. We've already heard the whole story." Linda tried to keep calm. "Wow, Barbara, why have you come? This is a family matter. We will resolve it ourselves." My mother let out an ironic laugh. "Family matter, Linda. From the moment you appropriated my daughter's wedding gift to buy an apartment for yours, you broke any family tie. Until when do you plan to keep deceiving my daughter?" My mother took another bank statement out of her bag, a copy of the transfer of the $30,000 from my account to Linda's, certified by the bank. "This is the irrefutable proof that Emily transferred $30,000 as a wedding gift. I myself, as Emily's mother, was a witness to that transaction. You say you used that money for the wedding, but in reality, you used it to buy an apartment for Jessica." My mother passed the statement to my uncle so he could see it. My uncle Robert is a retired lawyer. My cousin Adrian works in a large company. Their presence gave more weight to my words. My uncle nodded with a serious voice. "Mrs. Linda, appropriating Emily's assets for your personal benefit is a serious crime. Not only do we have proof of the transfer, but also that of the sales contract for your daughter's apartment. This constitutes a crime of misappropriation." Linda collapsed. She did not expect my family to be so prepared and act so forcefully. She turned to Matt with a pleading look. "Matt, say something." Matt, face pale, stared at his mother. He could not believe his own mother was capable of lying in such a shameless way. Not only had she deceived me, but also him. "Mom, tell me the truth. Did you use the wedding gift money to buy the apartment for Jessica?" asked Matt with deep disappointment in his voice. Linda lowered her head, not daring to look her son in the eyes. She had been completely unmasked. My mother continued with an authoritative voice. "Linda, we have not come to argue, but to protect our daughter. Emily has been too lenient. You and Matt have taken advantage of her kindness to squeeze her dry for 3 years. Now is the time to pay." My uncle added, "We have already consulted with a lawyer. If you and Matt do not pay the entirety of the $100,000 debt in 3 days, Emily will file a formal lawsuit in court. In that case, you will not only be forced to pay the debt with interest, but your family's reputation and honor will be gravely affected." My family had come to show the Miller family that I, Emily, was not alone, and that I had solid legal backing. The unity and transparency of my family were the most powerful weapon against their greed and lies. Matt and Linda no longer dared to say another word. They had been defeated at the negotiation table. After my family presented the irrefutable proof of the appropriation of the wedding gift, the atmosphere in the coffee shop became suffocating. Matt and Linda had completely lost their initial arrogance. I looked directly at Matt, the ex-husband who had betrayed me, and at Linda, the mother-in-law who had deceived me. "Matt, Linda, everything is very clear. I do not want to hear any more excuses. I have kept silent too long, and I have given you an opportunity, but you have not known how to appreciate it." I took out a printed document. The official debt claim. This is the final summary. $70,000 of expenses squandered with the additional cards, and $30,000 of the wedding gift appropriated improperly. Total, $100,000. I am already divorced from you. Our financial relationship has ended. You and your mother are responsible for returning the entirety of this amount to me. Matt bit his lip, his face full of despair. Emily, $100,000 is too much. How are we going to pay it all in 3 days? That is your problem. I don't care. You can sell Jessica's apartment, sell the car, or ask for a loan. It is the price you have to pay for your greed. Remember what I told you? I gave you a 3-day ultimatum starting at 3 in the afternoon yesterday. My mother intervened with a firm voice. Matt, if you want to resolve this amicably and keep a minimum of dignity, you have to pay. If not, my daughter will file a lawsuit. Then, not only will you be forced to pay the debt, but also the court costs and the interest generated since the divorce. Furthermore, the whole truth about the deception, appropriation, gambling, and infidelity of your family will be made public before the law and society. My uncle added a warning. And any attempt to falsify documents or get rid of assets during this time will only make the situation worse. Mrs. Linda, if you and Matt have that intention, we already have a contingency plan. I saw how Matt and Linda's gazes crossed, full of panic. They knew they were on the verge of total collapse. Matt, ask Emily to lower it a little. I don't have money to pay, pleaded Linda. Not a cent less. Linda, when you used my money to buy an apartment for Jessica, did you think about lowering your greed a little? Now there is no negotiation possible, I affirmed with roundness. I handed the debt claim to Matt. He took it reluctantly. I say it for the last time, $100,000. Tomorrow at 11:59 p.m., if I have not received the payment notification, I will officially file the lawsuit in the city courts, along with all the evidence I have collected. I got up, and my family too. Now, if you will excuse me, I have to return to the flower shop. I do not want to waste any more time with people who cannot be trusted. We left the coffee shop, leaving Matt and Linda plunged into despair and fear. I knew that from that moment until the next day, they would pass the most agonizing hours of their lives. After the ultimatum, I knew I had to take extreme precautions. The Miller family, especially Jessica, was reckless and blinded by money. I returned to the flower shop and focused on work. Emily's blooms was my heritage, my effort. I had to protect it at all costs. I knew that among the evidence I kept, some of the most important documents about Jessica's large expenses were in my personal safe at the shop. I had considered all possibilities. Jessica would surely try to destroy the evidence to evade her responsibility. That afternoon, I decided to put my contingency plan into motion. I hired a technical team to install high-tech hidden cameras focused on the safe area and the back door of the shop. I also changed the lock on the back door to an electronic one with an alarm, but I deliberately left a false appearance of a normal mechanical lock that looked easy to force. By 9 at night, the system was installed. I checked the signal and motion notifications. Everything was working. I left the shop at 7, telling my employee I would be away for a few days for personal matters. I wanted to create the perfect opportunity for Jessica to act. Just as I had predicted, at 11 at night I received an alert from the security cameras. Jessica had snuck into my flower shop. She was dressed in dark clothes with a mask and a small crowbar. She went directly to the back, where my safe was. Sitting in front of my computer monitor, I observed every one of her movements, my heart cold as ice. Desperation and greed had turned her into a thief. Jessica looked around. She saw the apparently normal lock and breathed a sigh of relief. She used her tool to force it, but of course, the electronic lock I had installed was not so easy to break. After a while struggling, she finally managed to open the door and slipped inside. She went straight to my office. The light of her flashlight illuminated the safe hidden in a corner. She started using the crowbar to force it. Jessica thought all the evidence was there. She didn't know I had already removed all the original documents and that what remained in the safe were just unimportant copies, along with a small tracking and recording device. I called Matt. "Matt, where are you?" "Do you know what your sister is doing?" I asked with a monotone voice. Matt's voice sounded alarmed. "Emily, what are you talking about?" "I don't know." "You don't need to know. I am watching the security cameras right now. Your dear sister Jessica is forcing my safe at the flower shop with a crowbar. She is trying to steal and destroy evidence to avoid paying the $100,000 debt. Matt." Matt fell silent for a long time. "Impossible. You are defaming me." "Defaming? Do you want to see it? I will send you the video of her forcing the safe right now. Do you think if I call the police right now, they won't catch her red-handed with the evidence and the tools of the crime?" I did not wait for his answer and sent him the live video. "Matt, I gave your family the opportunity to resolve this amicably, but you and your sister have chosen to commit a crime. I give you 10 minutes to tell her to leave immediately. If not, I will call the police." I hung up and turned off the monitor. I had the definitive proof. Jessica's attempted robbery. This proof would not only help me recover my money, but would allow me to cut completely any bond and moral responsibility with the Miller family. 10 minutes passed. I decided not to call the police immediately. I wanted to file the complaint the next morning with the video, the messages, and the statements, so the case would be formally registered and there would be no room for nocturnal pleas. I wanted the Miller family themselves to take Jessica to the precinct. That would be much more humiliating for them. The next morning, I gathered all the evidence. The video of Jessica's break-in, the warning message I sent to Matt, the statements of large expenses with Jessica's signature, and my complaint. At 9 sharp, I entered the neighborhood precinct and filed the complaint against Jessica for attempted robbery. Shortly after, my phone rang. It was Matt. "Emily, what have you done? Have you dared to report Jessica? My mother is very sick. You are her ex-daughter-in-law. How can you be so cruel?" "Cruel me, Matt? Who was the cruel one who used my money to maintain his mistress? Who was the cruel one who used my wedding gift money to buy an apartment for her daughter? Am I cruel for protecting my assets? Matt, I gave your family a chance, but Jessica chose to commit a crime. Now I am just following the law." I gave him the address of the precinct where I had filed the complaint. An hour later, Matt, Linda, and Jessica appeared at the precinct, face pale. Linda, seeing me, tried to lunge at me to insult me, but Matt stopped her. "Emily, you are shameless. Do you want to put my daughter in jail?" shouted Linda. A police officer approached seriously. "Please, ma'am, keep your composure. This is a precinct, not a place to resolve personal disputes. Miss Emily and Miss Jessica's family, step into the office." In the office, I presented all the evidence. The complaint, the video clearly showing Jessica forcing the lock in the safe, and the proof that her motive was to destroy evidence of the $100,000 debt. Jessica, faced with the irrefutable evidence, collapsed. She didn't dare look at me. "I just wanted to get my papers back," she stammered. The officer said coldly, "Those assets are in Miss Emily's name. You have no right to enter without permission and take them. Your action constitutes a crime of attempted robbery. Luckily, nothing was stolen, but the act is clear." Linda and Matt tried to defend her. "Officer, my daughter was just impulsive. She didn't know what she was doing. Please forgive her." This time, Linda whimpered. "Officer, Miss Emily is trying to harm my family. She claims an uncleared debt from us." Matt tried to divert attention. I presented the detailed statements and the debt claim. "Officer, I am only claiming my money. This sum of $100,000 is backed by invoices and documents. Miss Jessica's break-in was to destroy the evidence of her debt and evade her civil responsibility." Finally, after reviewing all the evidence, the police concluded that Jessica's action was a crime. However, being the first time and not having caused material damage, she would be sanctioned with a very high administrative fine for attempted robbery and disturbing the peace. Jessica had to accept the sanction and publicly commit not to reoffend. Linda and Matt had to pay the fine immediately. Leaving the precinct, Linda and Matt looked at me with deep hatred. "Emily, remember this. I will never forgive you," said Linda, clenching her teeth. I looked directly at her. "Linda, I do not need you to forgive me. I just need you to return my $100,000. If you do not do it, I will sue you. Jessica's fine is just a small lesson." I knew I had won a great battle in this war. I had used the law to punish their greed and recklessness. They had been sanctioned by the police, their honor was on the floor, and the debt of $100,000 still hung over their heads. The deadline to pay the debt had expired, and of course, the Miller family had not paid a single cent. I knew perfectly well they did not have the capacity to get that sum so quickly. But what I needed was their refusal to initiate the next phase of my plan. I filed the lawsuit in civil court. At the same time, I began to execute my final blow, a mortal blow to Matt's honor. Tiffany, his mistress, had received more than $20,000 in expensive gifts from him, all paid with my money. She had helped destroy my family, and I was not going to leave her alone. I investigated and found Gary, Tiffany's husband. He was a young businessman with a stable family and career. Tiffany had been cheating on her husband with Matt. I arranged a meeting with Gary in a discreet coffee shop. I brought evidence not only of the infidelity but also of Matt's expenses on Tiffany. "Hello, Gary. I am Emily, Matt Miller's ex-wife. I have not come to cause trouble but to tell you a truth about your wife, Tiffany." Gary was a quiet man, but his eyes showed caution. "I don't know what you're talking about. My wife and Mr. Miller are just partners." I slid him a small folder. It contained photos of Matt and Tiffany in private places, affectionate messages between them, and most importantly, the statements of my card expenses. "Gary, look at it. Your wife and my ex-husband are not partners. They are lovers. My ex-husband has spent more than $20,000 on gifts, rentals, and maintaining your wife for the last 6 months. All that money is the fruit of my labor. I have divorced Matt, but I cannot allow your wife, Tiffany, to benefit from the destruction of my family." Gary looked through the photos and bills. His face turned red with anger. He stared at the bill for the diamond ring Matt had bought Tiffany. "Is it true? $20,000. Did she dare to cheat on me?" I nodded. "Gary, I have no reason to lie. The evidence is clear. I am not showing you this to provoke you, but because I want justice. Tiffany has taken advantage of my husband's stupidity and my money. She has to pay for her actions." Gary stood up, clenching his fists so hard his knuckles turned white. He said nothing, but I knew his anger had reached the limit. "Thank you, Emily. I know what I have to do." That same afternoon, Gary acted. He did not go looking for Tiffany, but went directly to the Miller family's neighborhood. Accompanied by some friends, he planted himself in front of their house and publicly unmasked Matt. "Matt Miller, come out here. You dare to mess with my wife and cheat on me. You have used your ex-wife's money to maintain my wife. Come out and show your face." Gary's screams attracted the whole neighborhood. Matt, who was at home, came out terrified. "Gary, what are you doing? Why do you come to cause this scene?" Matt trembled. Gary threw a bundle of photos and bills in his face. "Scene? You are the one who has destroyed my family. You are a despicable man. Not only are you unfaithful, but you use your ex-wife's money to maintain your mistress. You are a parasite." The whole neighborhood was shocked. The honor of the Miller family was trampled without mercy. Linda and Jessica came out trying to get Matt inside the house, but Gary did not give up. My revenge had reached its peak. Not only had I sued them for the debt and reported them to the police, but now Matt was publicly humiliated by his mistress's husband. The Miller family was plunged into chaos and shame. While Matt and his family tried to calm Gary down, a taxi stopped abruptly in front of the house. Tiffany, the beautiful mistress, got out. She no longer had the seductive look of the photos. Her face was full of panic and anger. Seeing Gary, her husband, and Matt struggling, she realized the situation had spiraled out of control. She approached, and without saying a word to Gary, she confronted Matt directly. "Matt, what the hell are you doing? Why haven't you fixed this? You promised me you would divorce Emily and marry me. And now what? You have made my husband discover me, and I have lost all my honor." Tiffany did not defend Matt, but demanded compensation from him. "Matt, I have been by your side, being your shadow for 6 months. Now everything has collapsed. You have to compensate me for my lost youth and honor. I need $50,000. Matt, Linda, Gary, and all the neighbors were stunned. Matt looked at her with his mouth open, unable to believe what he was hearing. "Tiffany, what are you saying? $50,000? Where am I going to get that much money? I've already spent more than $20,000 on you," shouted Matt. $20,000 were just unimportant gifts. Do you think my honor is worth 4 trinkets? If you don't give me the $50,000, I will report you for taking advantage of me and tell everyone you are a coward who lives off his ex-wife's money," threatened Tiffany. Gary, hearing his wife demand compensation from Matt, felt completely disappointed. He realized Tiffany's greedy and shameless nature. "Tiffany, and on top of that, you dare to ask for money. You are unfaithful. You have cheated on me. And now you have the face to come here to demand money from the one who has destroyed another person's family? Do not dare to set foot in my house again," Gary roared. He turned to Matt with a look full of contempt. "Matt, the money you spent on my wife I am not going to claim from you. But I warn you, if you get close to her again, I will not leave you alone. You and your family are already paying the price for this infidelity." Gary left, leaving Tiffany and the Miller family in the middle of chaos. Tiffany, seeing Gary leave, clung to Matt's arm. "Matt, now what? My husband is going to divorce me. What am I going to do? You have to pay me." Matt collapsed completely. He had lost his mistress, had no money, and dragged a huge debt with both his ex-wife and his mistress. $50,000. "Are you crazy? I don't have it," shouted Matt. Linda looked at Tiffany with hate. "Get out of here, you witch. You've destroyed my family. You have no right to ask my son for money." The scene of Matt, harassed by his mistress, insulted by his future mother-in-law, and humiliated in front of his neighbors, became a pathetic farce. The Miller family was plunged into absolute chaos. I, Emily, had witnessed it all from afar, without needing to intervene, being a witness to this act of poetic justice. I knew that nothing could save the honor and life of the Miller family anymore. After the public humiliation by Gary and Tiffany's claim, the Miller family remained destroyed and isolated. The neighbors looked at them with contempt. Faced with the debt of $100,000 in my lawsuit, Matt and Linda tried one last dirty exit. One morning, I received a letter from Matt's lawyer. Attached came a handwritten promissory note saying that I, Emily, owed Matt and Linda $20,000 with a forged signature of mine. They had forged this note hoping to deduct that amount from the total debt they had to pay me. I let out a dry laugh seeing the fake note. Did they still think I was so easy to trick? Immediately, I took the document to the National Institute of Toxicology and Forensic Sciences to request a handwriting analysis. I knew perfectly well my signature was not easy to forge and that this act would be another mortal blow for them. A week later, I received the expert report. The result was clear. The signature on the note was fake. It did not correspond to that of Miss Emily. I immediately sent the report to Matt's lawyer with a message. Matt and his mother have added the crime of document forgery to misappropriation on their list. I will add this evidence to the lawsuit file. Matt and Linda panicked knowing I had requested an analysis. They knew they no longer had an escape. It was the moment for my final blow, the isolation of the family clan. The Miller family was a large and traditional family. I had collected all the evidence: Linda's gambling, Jessica's attempted robbery, Matt's infidelity, and the forgery of the note. I drafted an email attaching all the evidence: the video of Jessica forcing the safe, the expert report of the fake signature, the statements of Linda's gambling expenses, and the bills for Matt's gifts to his mistress. I sent the email to the Miller family group chat, which included grandparents, uncles, cousins, and other relatives. The subject of the email was the truth about the greed and lies of Matt Miller's family and the debt of $100,000 that must be settled. The group chat exploded instantly. An avalanche of messages of indignation from relatives flooded the group. "Linda, do you dare to forge a note and gamble? You have shamed the whole family," wrote an aunt. "Matt, you are miserable. Not only are you unfaithful, but you use your ex-wife's money to maintain your mistress." "I will cut all relationship with you," said an uncle. "Jessica, have you no shame? The whole family living off Emily, and now you try to steal." "We do not accept people like you in this family," commented a cousin. In a matter of hours, I received a message from Matt. "Emily, what have you done? You have destroyed my family. Everyone has cut ties with us. You are very cruel." I did not respond. My goal had been fulfilled. The Miller family was not only indebted to me and punished by the law, but was now completely isolated from their last support, their own family. They had lost all their honor and backing. I had won the war completely. A year has passed since I sent that email that unmasked the Miller family. All contact between them and me has ceased completely. The judicial process follows its course, but I know they are completely ruined, trying however they can to pay the debt. My life has changed completely. With my savings and my family's support, I have expanded my business. The chain of flower shops, Emily's Blooms, has gone from a small shop to having 3 successful branches in the city. I no longer have to worry about additional cards emptying my account. Every dollar I earn is the fruit of my effort. But most importantly, I have found peace and true happiness. I have a wonderful relationship with Ethan. He is an architect, a mature man, attentive, and most importantly, he loves me for who I am, not for my money or my generosity. He knows the whole history of my old marriage and has always supported me in every decision. Emily, this weekend we are going to the wholesale flower market to see the new flowers. What do you think? I heard a beautiful imported hydrangea has arrived. Ethan told me while helping me review the accounting. I smiled. Of course. You coming with me is the best. I need to see that batch of hydrangeas well before taking them to the new shop. On Saturday morning, Ethan and I went to the biggest flower market in the city. The place was crowded with people, noise of haggling, wheelbarrows, and the aroma of all kinds of flowers. While I was reviewing the quality of a batch of greenhouse roses, I saw a familiar figure carrying heavy sacks. I froze. It was Matt. He no longer had that elegant air nor wore designer clothes. Now he wore a faded t-shirt and torn jeans, soaked in sweat. He worked as a warehouse porter, a physical job he had always despised before. Ethan noticed I had stopped. "Emily, what's wrong? Is this batch no good?" I shook my head and pointed at Matt. "Ethan, look at that man carrying sacks. It's Matt, my ex-husband." Ethan furrowed his brow, looked at Matt with surprise, but then his expression became serene. Matt also seemed to recognize me. He dropped the sack and stared at me. In his eyes, there was no longer arrogance or threats, only suffering, fatigue, and shame. In that moment, I heard a familiar voice shouting out wares. "Fresh vegetables charred from the garden, $3 a bunch." I turned around. The woman squatting next to a basket of vegetables with clothes stained with dirt was Linda, my ex-mother-in-law, the one who called herself a lady. Now she sold vegetables in the market. Her face was haggard, full of wrinkles, with no trace of her former haughtiness. And they were not alone. At the stall next door, helping her mother, was Jessica, the always impeccable sister-in-law who despised me. Now, with her head down, she helped her mother weigh vegetables. The whole Miller family had to make a living with manual labor, doing the hardest jobs to survive and pay their debts. Karma had arrived. Linda recognized me and Ethan. She did not dare look at me directly and turned away. Jessica lowered her head even more, as if she wanted the earth to swallow her. I knew I shouldn't cause a scene, but there was something I needed to clarify to close all wounds. I approached their stall. Ethan gently took my hand as a sign of support. "Good afternoon, Linda. Matt, Jessica," I said with a calm voice. Matt responded reluctantly, "Emily." Linda remained silent, hands trembling while wrapping a bunch of vegetables. I continued, with a voice loud enough but firm. "I haven't come to see you suffer. I have come to remind you of the last installment of the debt." Matt raised his head, eyes full of worry. "The last installment is $2,000. My lawyer has already informed yours. According to the agreement, you have to pay it all before the end of the month." Matt sighed, his voice loaded with powerlessness and regret. "I know. We will manage. We will pay it all. I'm sorry, Emily." I no longer needed that apology. I just needed them to return my money completely. Once you pay those $2,000, everything between the Miller family and me will have ended. I do not want any other type of link. I looked at Linda and Jessica for the last time. Linda, Jessica, money, honor, and happiness are created by oneself. Once you had it all, but you lost it out of greed. I turned around and walked away without looking back. Ethan approached and squeezed my hand. "Emily, it's all over. You did very well." I smiled, feeling total peace inside. I had recovered justice, my assets, and most importantly, I had been reborn from the ashes of my old marriage. I, Emily, had freed myself completely from the shadow of deception and greed. I was no longer the wife easy to manipulate, but a successful businesswoman, independent and happy next to the man I loved. My life, from now on, would only have flowers and sunny days. Seeing Matt sweating while carrying sacks and Linda selling vegetables trembling in the market, I understood one thing. Limitless greed, no matter how well disguised, always leads to the most humiliating failure. I recovered my $100,000, but the lesson I learned was much more valuable. A woman's value does not reside in the money she gives, but in her autonomy and firmness to defend herself. The Emily of before was dead. Only a stronger version of me remained, ready to embrace a new happiness.